a strange book has been written about the Amarthi, who lived below the surface of the earth underground. He was supposedly the king of the world, among other mysterious descriptions of him. In 1922, a book was published that caused quite a stir. Critics did not know if it should be described as a novel out of the realm of fantasy or if it was a realistic narrative of an adventurous traveler. The title of the mysterious book was People, Animals, and Gods, and its author was a shadowy political figure, the Polish writer and explorer Ferdynand Antony Ossendowski. Within 3 years, his book had sold more than 300,000 copies and was translated into almost all of the European languages. However, it was not a book with art claims. On the contrary, it was rather misspelled, but his stories were paradoxical, unprecedented, bizarre, literally unbelievable. The author, who had been taken prisoner of war by the Russians, managed to escape a year after the October Revolution of the Bolsheviks and reached a European port in China, Harbin in Manchuria. In his book, then, Ossendowski recounted his adventures in unknown lands. He began his story with how he managed to leave Russia, crossed hundreds of kilometers of this vast country, and how he once found himself in Mongolia. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Now, there in Mongolia, he developed a close relationship with one of his contemporaries, Roman von Unger Sternberg, the infamous Crazy Baron, quote unquote, as he was called because of his authoritarian and cruel nature during the Russian Civil War. Pro-monarch von Ungern, the Crazy Baron, after seizing Mongolia from Chinese rule, turned it against all of Europe and Asia. Ossendowski argued in his book that in some Asian countries, such as Mongolia and Tibet, mysterious supernatural forces, dark demons, and powerful magicians prevailed. In fact, he reported that in Tibet, he was able to see his family who were in Poland using magic. He had also met Buddhist monks who had been entrusted with their sacred secrets. He had been given an ancient manuscript that told the story of an underground people living below the surface of the earth, whom Buddhist priests called the kingdom of Amarthi. Now, let's keep in mind what we knew about Alexander the Great when he got to India and China, and all those Nephilim. He called them the abominable races of beings. They were Nephilim, as we would say today, the ones that he couldn't get rid of. He closed underground and poured special metals over the openings and constructed pyramids over them. This is what Alexander the Great had done, according to the documents written by his secretaries of his campaigns. So is it too far-fetched to think that these quote-unquote Nephilim creatures were underground? So, as we said, he met the Buddhist monks who were entrusted with sacred secrets, and he had been given an ancient manuscript that told the story of an underground people living below the surface of the earth, whom Buddhist priests called the kingdom of Amarthi. The ruler of these legendary Amarthi was the king of the world. According to the Buddhist priests, the Amarthi were all demigods. Let's remember the ancient Greek gods were all demigods and sons of their, Zeus and Hera and others. Demigods with special heights and special strengths. So the Amarthi were all demigods, and their purpose was to prepare the polygenesis of humanity when worldly humanity completes the cycle of its errors, arbitrariness, and crimes on this planet. All this, however, Ossendowski narrated without art, without sophistication, without wanting to make his narrative fun, enjoyable, and literary. They were narrated with the simplicity of a browser which he copied only from his draft notebook. And here lay the whole lure of his writing, in the persuasiveness. Many of his narratives, after all, embossed many historical events of that period, with references to specific people and events. Others, however, seemed to reject logic itself. He mentioned incredible cases of practicing magic and elaborate magic, which seems unbelievable to have nailed them, described the appearance of spirits after being invoked by priests and, in fact, after a human sacrifice. Now, we know that, they were probably conjuring up demonic entities. That happens many times in, black magic. Even areas where you do black magic are supposedly areas of perpetual demonic entities and poltergeist activity. That's why you have to have a priest come over and do an exorcising of the area with holy water and holy unction. Now, in the vast areas around Mongolia and even China, as Ferdinand Anthony Ossendowski claimed, there was a unique people who ignored every country other than their own, every other god besides the Xoans, Xoans, they worshipped, and every other science beyond their state magic. Thus, animals, gods, and people lived perfectly in harmony with the consciousness of this people, he said. Many scholars of that time rushed to accuse the author of mythomania, even plagiarism, but the Polish explorer simply replied that those who did not see with their own eyes what he saw with his own eyes would find it very difficult to believe him. He stubbornly insisted that everything he said in his book was absolutely true, but very far and very different from the habits and way of life of the Western world. This was published in the newspaper Ethnos National in Greece on the 8th of March in 1925. I've translated this for you from a Greek article having to do with, I guess it would say, demonic entities. They're not going towards the heaven, they're going the other way down. And it could be even the Nephilim that were locked up by Alexander the Great. That took place about 330 BC. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.